أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected brothers and sisters and elders in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope that all of you are doing well and inshallah enjoying the blessings of the month of Ramadan. And I pray that all of your special a'mal are accepted from the night of Qadr. And I pray that all of your du'as are granted. This was the most special night of the year, but we're also told that the day of the night of Qadr is similarly special. This is according to a number of riwayat. And so we pray that Allah Ta'ala gives us the opportunity to make the most of whatever blessings that we have. And even if it's the case that the night and day of Qadr have passed by, then we still are hopeful in whatever remains of the month of Ramadan that we can make the most of that. And that even beyond the month of Ramadan, Allah Ta'ala continues to show us His mercy, and that we continue to turn to Him frequently, often, and we continue to ask our dua, and we continue to present our needs to Him, and He continues to shower us with His blessings. This evening, for the program, I'd like to begin with a presentation about one of the parables of the Quran, and then we're going to have an interactive portion like we've had in the previous evenings, and then there'll be a speech portion. So you can go ahead and join us on slido.com with the hashtag Saba, so that you can participate in the interactive quiz that's going to be happening after the presentation. Let's go to the presentation now. Okay, so our verse for today and our parable has to do with the theme of knowledge can corrupt, and it is known as the parable of the dog, or the parable of the corrupt person of knowledge. So let's go ahead, while you're reading the translation, let's go ahead and listen to the recitation of those two verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
واتل عليهم نبأ الذي آتيناه آياتنا فانسلخ منها فأتبعه الشيطان فكان من الغاوين ولو شئنا لرفعناه بها ولكنه أخلد إلى الأرض واتبع هواه فمثله كمثل الكلب إن تحمل عليه يلهث أو تتركه يلهث ذلك مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا فاقصص القصص لعلهم يتفكرون.
صدق الله العلي العظيم. This parable is about someone. Okay, now in these verses, Allah doesn't mention the name of this person. And even though there is somebody who's mentioned in history, and we're going to get to that in just a bit, it's an example that can apply to different people at all times, and it can apply to me and to you as well. Allah says that, tell them about the story of the one whom we gave our signs to, but he cast them off, and then Shaitan went after him, and he became one of those people who was very much wrong and in the error. Had we wished, we would have surely raised him by the means of these signs, but he clung to the earth and he followed his base desires. So his parable is that of a dog. If you make for it, it pants with its tongue out, and if you let it alone, it pants with its tongue out. That is the parable of the people who deny our signs. So tell these parables and tell these stories so that they may reflect. So inshallah, what we like to do this evening, is the month of Quran. We like to spend a bit of time reflecting on this parable, trying to understand a little bit more about it, and then seeing how we can take lessons from it for our lives. Let's go to the next slide now. Okay, Now, a little bit about the panting of a dog, because it's mentioned in this verse, so it's important for us to understand this. Now, maybe somebody might be a little bit kind of like, why is this guy talking about the panting of a dog? You know, of all things, couldn't he talk about something else? Well, it's going to help us to understand a little bit more about this verse. So, there's something about the panting of dogs. They pant frequently. Now, some type of dogs, they pant more than others, apparently. Now, the reason why they pant isn't just because like they're like bloodthirsty or something. It's not like that only when they're on alert and they've like, let's say they found a situation where they need to defend their master, or they found like, I don't know, an intruder. It's not like only then when they pant. They pant when at that time, but they pant at other times as well. They just pant. They pant a lot. Why do they pant? Because their bodies are made in a way that the excess heat that develops in their body, it doesn't just come out like in sweat, like it might be for human beings. So their tongues, it has to come out through the tongue. And they have to open their mouth and they have to breathe really fast. Apparently, dogs, when they're panting, they breathe up to 10 times as fast as they normally do. So they're panting at all times, whether they're emotionally disturbed or whether they're not disturbed, whether somebody's attacking them or they're leaving them alone, a dog might be seen as panting. Now that's something that we can picture visually. But Allah Ta'ala, just like the other parables, Allah is giving us that so that we can have something to think about when we're trying to understand a more abstract and a deeper concept. So the summary of the verse is that there was someone who received Allah's special signs but then threw them off. He was misguided by Iblis, Shaitan. Allah could have raised him through those signs, but he clung to the earth and he followed his base desires. He is like a dog that pants whether you attack it or not. So a few vocabulary words. The first one is when Allah describes this person getting rid of Allah's special signs. Now these special signs were something that were given to him. Allah says that we gave him these. It means that it's a special type of knowledge that other people didn't have access to. It was like a special gift. For example, we just passed through Laylatul Qadr. Maybe some of the believers were asking Allah for more knowledge, for a greater understanding, for qurb to Him, which comes in the form of knowledge, where we know Allah in our hearts. Now this person was given special knowledge, but then he threw it off. But the word that's used in Arabic is fansalakha. Fansalakha, literally it's used when you're skinning like an animal. An animal, you slaughter it and then you're taking off the skin. You actually do salakha. You're taking off that skin. Now, why does Allah use this word? The Mufassirin say because that knowledge was something that surrounded him so much. It was almost like a cloth that covered his whole body, or like his own skin. That's how close it was to him. It wasn't just something that was far away. But even that, he was able to skin it off. He was able to take it off. It doesn't mean that it was permanent. Now, the other word that I wanted to highlight is rafa'anahu. Allah could have raised him with these signs. Now, raising him, of course, is not physical. The idea is raising him on a spiritual level where he would become closer to Allah by following Allah's guidance. That's why He gave him that knowledge. But he didn't take advantage of it. Now, there's another expression which is very interesting in the verse, فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ. And the way that it's been translated in the verse is, he was misguided by shaitan. But another potential meaning of فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانِ is that shaitan tabi'ahu, meaning that shaitan started to follow him. Now, can that really be the case? That somebody can be more satanic than Satan himself? For sure. Sometimes human beings, through their devilish thinking, they might come up with something where Shaitan is like, whoa, man, couldn't even think of that myself. Let me take some notes from you. You're going to be my teacher. And in this case, this person, because it wasn't meant to be the case that he would have done this, and we're going to talk about what he did. There's a lot more expected of him. But then when somebody who's in a high position, somebody who there's a lot of expectations about, when they turn against God and they become an enemy of the Prophet and the awliya of Allah, well then they become worse than shaitan, because nobody expects shaitan to do any good. So that's one of the potential meanings of this verse. And the last expressions I wanted to focus on was أخلد إلى الأرض, meaning he clung to the earth and followed his base desires. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَى. Hawa means low and base desires. He became, what does that mean? Like, did he get down and did he like start just grabbing onto like the earth and like the rocks on the ground? No, it's an expression. It's a, it's like a metaphor. He became, when clinging to the earth means when somebody just like is obsessed with the dunya. They want this, everything on the earth. They want it, and they can't think about anything that's beyond this dunya. All of their thoughts, all of their actions, they dream about the dunya. Their passion is the dunya. And when it comes to talking about the akhirah and spiritual perfection and being close to the Ahlul Bayt, it's like, I don't have time to think about that. That's not something which is priority for me. Now, this person was obsessed with the dunya, and then he worshipped his low desires, meaning that he made his decisions based on what his own nafs was calling him to do, his own lust and his own passions and his desire to feed himself and to like feed his own desires. That's what was driving him. Okay, with that now, let's look at some questions that come up about this verse. First of all, who is the person who's being talked about? In hadith, we're told that it's talking about somebody named Bal'am, the son of Ba'ura. But it applies to any Muslim who prefers his hawa, his low desire, over the guidance of Allah. And that's why Allah presents this in the form of a parable, because it's supposed to be something that we're supposed to reflect on and say that, hey, that could be me as well. What did Bal'am do? Bal'am was somebody who was one of the supporters of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. And he was somebody who was given knowledge. He was a pure person. He was a devout worshipper. He was sincere, to the point where he was mustajabud da'wah, meaning that whatever he would ask for from Allah, he would be granted it. Yes, there are people who are like that, where Allah Ta'ala would never refuse them if they ask something from him. So Bal'am was one of these people. Now Fir'aun wanted to somehow bring down Musa alayhi salam, and he made use of all the techniques in the book, including trying to penetrate into his inner ranks. Bal'am was one of these people. And Fir'aun might have incited him by tempting him with money, or Mufassirin also say that with jealousy, because now he was thinking to himself that here I am and I have this status and knowledge, and Musa is the one who's the prophet and he has the miracles. Well, who's Musa? And so Fir'aun somehow sends in the message that, hey, you have this incredible ability. Whatever you ask for comes true. So why don't you ask that Nabi Musa be taken down, and then you'll have the highlight. You'll be in the spotlight. Everyone will look at you and follow you. You'll be their alim. So Bal'am decides to do that one day, and he decides to get on his donkey and ride towards Musa alayhi salam. But along the way, the donkey starts to understand what's happening here. Animals also have shu'ur. They have a sense for what's going on. And the donkey refuses to go on. And according to the hadith, Allah gives the donkey the ability to speak. And Bal'am understands that the donkey is telling him that I will never go and be the means which will allow you to go and pray against a prophet of God. And so Bal'am is now starting to whip the donkey, and the donkey is refusing to go, until finally the donkey dies because of Bal'am's torturing it. And when he kills the donkey, then Allah Ta'ala takes away that special knowledge that he had been given previously. But this is an analogy and a parable for everyone. Anybody who has iman, anybody who has knowledge from Allah, anybody who has any type of sense of being close to Allah, they shouldn't think that that's going to be there for sure and it's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. In this world, we have to always be striving. We have to always be working. Whatever we've been given, we have to strive to preserve it. Now, what do the dog and it always panting with its tongue represent? The dog, perhaps it refers to somebody who follows his desire even though he knows better. Okay, like dogs, are known for this. They're beings that are very much, keen on following like their desires. And so that a human being can have a dog-like characteristic as well. And what does it mean for the dog to always be panting with its tongue out? Human beings can be like a dog in the way that they also follow their own desire no matter what. And it can become part of their nature, meaning in all circumstances, even when they don't need to. For example, sometimes we get in the habit of eating and eating and eating, and it continues even after the month of Ramadan, Eid day, and then beyond that. And then it's like, well, we're eating even when we're not hungry. Well, that's a small example of somebody who is pursuing their desires, even though it's nothing that they even need to do. It's part of their nature. Or with somebody who has access to Allah's signs, but it doesn't help him, meaning that he'll always deny them. Bal'am became like this, meaning that he was somebody who had been given this inner knowledge. He had witnessed it. Allah had given it to him. But then, because of his sinfulness, he became somebody who it didn't matter anymore. He could see all the miracles in the book. He could be talking to the Prophet of God and it wouldn't make a difference. And we know from the lives of the Prophets and the Imams that there were people who saw them with their own eyes. They were working miracles in front of them. They were exuding wisdom from their tongues, but they still stood against them. And we know that when the Imam of our time does his dhuhur, that there will be people who have been waiting for him their whole lives, but they won't be ready to accept what he has to say, and they'll be the first to stand against him. Now, Allah is all merciful. Why didn't He just guide everyone to the truth? Like, why is it the case that Allah took away these things from him? The answer is that Allah guides those who allow themselves to be guided. There are people who are like this dog who is panting at all times. They won't take the guidance from Allah. And Allah didn't create human beings to force them in a certain way. He has other beings that are created in a way where they don't have the type of free will that human beings have. So finally, what are some lessons and points of reflection we can take from this parable? Number one is clinging to the dunya prevents us from being raised by Allah. It shouldn't be the case that all of our efforts, all of our time is spent thinking about, income and startups and like entrepreneurship and money and dunya and fame and fortune. Yes, we need to strive hard. Yes, we need to provide for our families if that's our responsibility. Yes, we need to use the blessings of Allah in a way which is praiseworthy, in a way that He wants us to. Yes, we need to not waste time. But it shouldn't be the case that we're hungry for the dunya and we forgot about our larger responsibility. We're always being tested and we always need to be on guard. Even somebody who is at that level where they're mustajab with da'wah, even that person isn't safe from the tentacles of shaitan. Also, knowledge can become the biggest barrier for somebody. Here we have somebody who's supposed to be like this alim. He's been given special knowledge. He's considered as one of the knowledgeable people among the Bani Israel at that time. But that knowledge, if it's not accompanied with careful, type of self-monitoring, with humility, then it can become something which is one's downfall. Here, in this story, he becomes jealous of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Now, this is important for all of us. Sometimes, if we get used to the idea that, I'm like, somebody who people consider to be like a good mu'min. People think that I know my things. People think that, I'm knowledgeable, whatever it is, right? Well, I shouldn't let people's respect be that thing which is like a safety net for me. I have to be working on myself so that even whatever I have, it doesn't turn into something which is a curse for me, where I become proud of it. And I begin thinking that Allah is lucky to have a servant like me at His service. No, this is one of the traps of shaitan. Now, what do these verses teach us about when success is truly achieved? It's not about just getting to a certain point and just staying there. Success is only achieved when somebody has left this world, when they become one of the awliya of Allah. But for many, that's not going to happen until they have both feet in Jannah. Why would Allah use the parable of a dog to illustrate such a person? There are other animals that pant as well, like horses. But Allah Ta'ala wanted to show us that this is the type of characteristic that somebody can take on. Just like a dog is always hungry, a dog is always barking, a dog is always like they have certain characteristics which are negative. Human beings can take these on, but it's even worse for them to take it on because they are meant for something that's much higher than an animal. May Allah Ta'ala help us to understand the Quran and apply it in our lives. Let's have a salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, now it's time for our interactive quiz. If I can invite you all to join us on slido.com. We have some of you already signed up for it, but please, the rest of you can go ahead and sign in, and inshallah, the more who are participating, the more it feels like, okay, well, we're kind of in this together, and we're not just sitting back and watching it just like a show. We're trying to learn, actively be participating in learning. Okay, so inshallah, while you guys are logging in and joining in, I wanted to just say that the first question, like in previous interactive quizzes, has to do with the verse that we are about to hear right now. So listen carefully. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
رب اغفر لي ولوالدي ولمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا.
So this is one of the beautiful du'as from the Quran. And we're going to listen to it one more time, and then there's going to be a question about it. Listen carefully.
رب اغفر لي ولوالدي ولمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا.
Okay, with that, we're going to launch the quiz. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The dua that you heard about praying for forgiveness for believers who enter the home and for all believers, I basically gave you the translation of the verse, is from which of the following individuals from the Quran? There's so much that we can learn from these beautiful du'as of the prophets, and we can learn about the etiquette of dua, what to pray for, how to pray for it. Okay, so let's look at our results. We have most of you voting for Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Nabi Ibrahim has some beautiful du'as in the Quran, but this is not one of them. This is a dua of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. Okay, let's see if you can get the next one. I'm proud of this next question. Actually, no, the next question, okay, is a question about what we just talked about right now. The next one is an interesting one, a special one. Okay, according to the hadith of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, the parable of the dog applies to which of the following? If you were paying attention, then this should be a cinch for you. Okay, so many of you selected the first response, one who has access to Allah's signs but rejects them. For sure, the parable of the dog applies to them, but that's not what the hadith of Imam Baqir Islam said. His hadith said that any Muslim who follows his hawa and then doesn't take Allah's guidance. That was directly from the hadith. Okay, nice try. Now look at the next question. Which one of the following surahs doesn't contain a meme in any of its verses except in the basmala, meaning in the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim that starts out that surah? Okay, now you have to go fast. Think. Okay, which one does not contain a meme in any of its verses except in the basmala? Okay, now this one I thought would be a really hard question, but it seems that it wasn't hard enough because most of you people got exactly the right. It was Surah Al-Kawthar. Nobody selected Surah Al-Baqarah? Oh, I thought that maybe... Okay, anyhow, alright. Okay, so yeah, the Surah Kawthar has no meme in it. It's apparently the only surah in the Quran that doesn't have a meme except for in the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, now the last question is, according to hadith, this is like from the speech a few days ago, like maybe towards the beginning of when I started speaking. According to hadith, Asiya openly challenged Fir'aun when he did which of the following? Okay, alhamdulillah, it seems like most of you were listening carefully, because exactly it is when Fir'aun bragged about how he had killed the wife of Hisqil, the hairdresser. So let's take a look at our leaderboard for this evening. We have one person with 4 out of 4, Ali K, good job Ali K, and then we have Fatima H and the Alibai family at 3, and then many of you at 2 points, and the rest of you, thank you for trying, alhamdulillah. Anyhow, we're all trying to just, whether we got scored well or we didn't, then what's important is that we're learning something, inshallah. And thank you for participating, inshallah. We'll continue in the upcoming evenings. I did want to say that we've opened up the Q&A. And so if you do have questions, then you can add them there. There was a couple questions that were asked a few days ago, but we haven't had a chance to address them. But inshallah, I'm hoping to end a little bit earlier today and then to get to the Q&A. So the Q&A is there in Slido.com. It's just a different option there. Okay, let's now go to the speech for tonight. Yesterday, we kind of took a bit of a diversion from our sequential approach to talking about the life of Nabi Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel and Fir'aun, because we were commemorating Laylatul Qadr, and we gave a few examples from the Quran about Nabi Musa alayhi salam's passion for Allah, and how the thing that drove all of his actions was litarda, so that you may be pleased with me. And it got to the point where Nabi Musa alayhi salam, after hearing the speech of Allah, he wanted to see Allah in his heart. Rabbi arini andur ilayk. O Allah, allow me to gaze upon you with the eye of my heart. And that shows us that Nabi Musa alayhi salam was somebody who, this was the goal. This is what he was aiming for. In all these different incidents that we're reading about him in the Quran, he's the prophet that's talked about most in the Quran. All of them are in some way driven by this basic purpose. But let's now go back to the story the way we were covering it, and we can see the roots of how all this, eventually led to the roots of what led to what we saw and talked about yesterday evening. So we were discussing how Nabi Musa alayhi salam had told that one of his Shias, that according to hadith, some of the hadith mentioned that he is Samiri, he had told him that you are somebody who is ghawiyun mubin, you're clearly in error, and that led to a negative reaction from him. Rather than taking that advice, he actually made things much worse by saying openly that Nabi Musa was the one who had struck the man from yesterday, and then the one who was there, he was Fir'aun's man. And so he heard that. Now it was a clear confession as to who the killer was. Now Nabi Musa alayhi salam is going to be a wanted man. So the story continues in verse number 20, where Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Qasas, Allah says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْعَى. There came a man from the city outskirts hurrying. He said, Musa, the elite are indeed conspiring to kill you. So leave, I am indeed your well-wisher. According to riwayat, this man from Aqsa al-Madinati, he's known as the Mu'min of Ali Fir'aun. He was somebody who was very close to Fir'aun, to the point where he was living in Fir'aun's castle himself. Now, was he from the Bani Israel, somebody who, one of those families that had grown very close to Fir'aun over over several generations? Or was he from the Copts themselves, meaning from the Ali Fir'aun? There's some discussion there. Some hadith mention that he was the person who kept the treasury for Pharaoh, and he was a very trusted person by Pharaoh. But at the same time, he was living a life of taqiyya, and he was also in the inner circle that had understood who Musa alayhi salam was, and who was working with Nabi Musa alayhi salam, and they were planning a certain way of being able to eventually lead Bani Israel to deliverance from Pharaoh. Now he got news that Nabi Musa's life is in danger. He comes and tells Nabi Musa alayhi salam that my advice to you is that you should leave. So how is it that Nabi Musa alayhi salam responds? In verse number 21, Allah Ta'ala describes him as follows. He says, فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ قَالَ رَبِّ نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. So Nabi Musa alayhi salam left the city, fearful and vigilant. He said, my Lord, deliver me from the wrongdoing lot. There's a few points that I want to discuss here, and they're points that we can definitely take some lessons from, inshallah. One of them is that what did Nabi Musa alayhi salam fear? Was he scared of the mala, the elite gang of Pharaoh, of them catching him and then maybe torturing him, finally taking revenge on him for all those years that they had developed this type of hatred and vengeance? Was he scared of, let's say, his special home in the palace of Pharaoh being taken away? Was he scared for his own life? Was he scared for now maybe his status among the people not being the way it was before? Before he was known as Musa, the son of the Pharaoh. He was like the next to be Pharaoh in line to inherit all of that, and now he would be somebody who would be known as the one who killed one of the people of Pharaoh. For a prophet of God, for somebody who's a sincere servant of Allah, what we know is that they do not have fear of these types of things. Their true fear is only for Allah Ta'ala. And that fear is called khashya. Khashya for a true believer, which is a type of intense fear, it's only for Allah Ta'ala. And so Nabi Musa alayhi salam, we know that his fear would have been only when it comes to his relationship with Allah. And we know that he was somebody that Allah had looked down upon favorably. Allah just said in a few verses before that when Nabi Musa alayhi salam had reached that level of maturity in his body and his thinking, that Allah granted him special knowledge and the ability to reason and understand what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So this type of fear, the Mufassirin, some of them say that it's a type of fear which comes about not because of him as a person, but because of what he represents and what effect it's going to have on the people. There is a beautiful example of this later on in Musa alayhi salam's life, when he is gathered at the court of Pharaoh and all the people have also gathered. They're watching this incredible duel of Nabi Musa versus the magicians of Pharaoh, and the magicians cast their rods down and they are able to use sorcery to trick people into thinking that these rods are actually moving snakes. فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً. Nabi Musa alayhi salam felt a type of trepidation or the beginning of a fear in his heart. Now there's a beautiful hadith from Imam Ali Islam where he clarifies that this fear was not about him, for example, not being supported by Allah. That Allah maybe wouldn't be there for him in the time of need. That maybe when he would cast his staff down, then it would just remain as a staff. No, Nabi Musa alayhi salam had yaqeen, he had certainty. He knew that Allah is always with us. He knows that Allah's promises are always fulfilled. But the fear that he had was that the people would be bewitched, and because they don't have that type of deeper thinking, they might just look at it in a very shallow way, and in that way they might not be guided by the clear signs that he's been given. So we can take that same thing and apply it here, that now that this has happened, there is a certain plan in place, and Nabi Musa alayhi salam is concerned that, okay, well, what's going to happen to that plan? His role was to be a savior for these people, but now what's going to happen? This is the concern that he has. But at the same time, he's a person who is very close to Allah, and definitely, even though these things are happening, he has full trust that Allah Ta'ala will take care of him. So Nabi Musa alayhi salam, he is now ready. فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا. He leaves the city. Now, it's interesting. Allah Ta'ala uses the word fa, which means that it happens, apparently right away. Meaning that when that well-wisher comes to him, he says, you have to leave. Nabi Musa leaves. Now, in Mufassirin, they say that this is something which is very amazing. That somebody who had grown up always, being sheltered in the same city, being, treated like a son of a pharaoh, somebody who didn't have that much experience of, like, let's say, journeying out into the world, somebody who didn't have any provisions with him, that he would just leave. Right? He didn't have any food, he didn't have any money, right? He didn't even know, which path to take, because obviously he would be pursued, right? He's a wanted man right now. If he's going to leave, he can't just leave by the normal highway, because that's definitely being patrolled. But Nabi Musa alayhi salam knows what his duty is. Now he understands that my responsibility is that I have to leave. فَخَرَجْ. And that's an important example for us. Now, when he leaves, he makes a dua. He says, Rabbi najjini min al-qawm al-zalimin. Oh my Lord, deliver me from the wrongdoing lot. At every step of the way, we see that Nabi Musa alayhi salam in his life, at all the key milestones, whenever anything, unexpected happens, something contrary to the plan. Nabi Musa alayhi salam's life is filled with this, right? He was supposed to be just going out in the city, and suddenly he sees his own person, he's in a predicament. He's supposed to go and just help him, defend him against the zalim. That person ends up getting killed. He's supposed to go and, help him once again, and that person ends up, spilling just basically telling the secret, and so on and so forth. But at every point, Nabi Musa's response is Rabbi. And there's a huge lesson there for us. Here, Rabbi, najini min al-qawm al-zalimin. My leaving this city isn't about me as a person trying to just save my life. I am representing a mission. I am representing a cause. And my cause is that I want to be with the pure ones. I want to take the pure path. I want to be saved from the zalimeen. I want to support the path of justice. And then the verse continues, وَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدْيَنَ. This is verse number 22 of Surah Al-Qasas. When he turned his face towards Madyan, قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي أَن يَهْدِيَنِي سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. He said, maybe my Lord will show me the right way. Now, where is Madyan? Madyan is a region in modern day Saudi Arabia. It's north of the Hijaz, of where Makkah, Medina are. It's across the Red Sea from Egypt. So it's east of Egypt and Misr, where Fir'aun was ruling from. Now, Madyan, according to the reports, was one of the cities which wasn't under the control of Fir'aun. Now, Nabi Musa, of course, is a person of thought. He knows that he has to go somewhere where Fir'aun is not going to be ruling, so that he's not going to be persecuted. But why, of all places, Madyan? Some of the commentators, they say that Madyan was a city that was known to be a place where the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam had settled. Nabi Musa alayhi salam was from the lineage of the Muwahhideen. Muwahhideen are the people of Tawheed, of those who had the monotheistic creed. And he knows that if he wants to go to a place, he should find a place where there will be these people and these guides, these figures who are the representatives of that monotheistic faith. And we're going to see in the story, inshallah, tomorrow, that Madyan is the place where Nabi Shu'aib alayhi salam is living. And there's a reason why Nabi Musa chooses that place to go to. Now, when he is going there, he doesn't know how to get there, right? Like I said, the path is being watched. It's not like he's a seasoned traveler. He doesn't have a guide with him. There's no GPS at that time. He knows where he wants to go to, but he doesn't know how to get there. What does he do at that point? Once again, he turns to Allah. He says that maybe my Lord, he makes a dua, maybe my Lord, Asa Rabbi an yahdiyani, will show me the right way, the straight path. He wants to get there in exactly the way that, the best way possible, without being detoured, without having, like, let's say, he doesn't want to take the long cut, he wants to take the shortcut. These are 3 verses. Now let's see what are some of the practical lessons we can take from them. The first point is about not having fear of anyone other than Allah Ta'ala. The Quran tells us that people who have low levels of faith, or maybe they don't have faith, they have khashya, this type of deep, intense fear of things and events and beings other than Allah Ta'ala. For example, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran that there are people who might consider killing their own newborn children. Why? Khashyata imlaq, or min khashyati imlaq. There's 2 different verses in the Quran which talk about this. They have fear of poverty, so they actually do such a crime that they're willing to kill their own babies. It's so surprising that somebody could stoop to that level. This type of khashya shouldn't be there, because Allah Ta'ala then says in both those verses that if somebody actually realizes that this whole universe is governed by Allah Ta'ala, Allah is promising us rizq, then there should be nothing to worry about. He's going to give you rizq and your children as well. That's Allah's responsibility. You just have to be the channel by which that rizq is going to be directed. But for believers, for the prophets of God and those who follow them, no, their only khashya is of Allah Ta'ala. They don't have fear of ordinary things. It's said about Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi alayhi that one of the outstanding qualities that he had was a sense of deep peace within. When the situation would be very, very tumultuous and a lot of events taking place and other people were very, very worried, he would always be calm. And he's reported to have once said that I have never felt fear even once in my life. Now, what type of fear is he talking about? He's talking about the type of fear of ordinary fear. Of course, he had fear of Allah Ta'ala. He would shed buckets of tears when he would be praying and talking to Allah. But the fear the ordinary people feel, no, he didn't have that. The second point I wanted to make was that Nabi Musa ﷺ is very keen on making sure that Allah shows him the right way. He knows where he wants to go to, but he says to Allah, "Oh Allah, show me the right way." These days, unfortunately, sometimes we see that the opposite is done, where sometimes people who are making decisions, they don't necessarily go about the right process to make that decision. They decide that, okay, this is my goal that I'm choosing. For example, I'm going to choose this career, I'm going to take this job, or I'm going to go to this university, or I'm going to buy that house. They don't necessarily go about making that decision in the right way. They don't, for example, try to understand what is the Islamic perspective. What are the implications on my practice of my faith? They don't necessarily consult with those whom they should be consulting with. But then, once they make that decision, then there's a lot of worries that come up, and they're always concerned, well, how am I going to make this happen now that I made that decision? Nabi Musa ﷺ teaches us a different way. That once you make your decision, and you know what your responsibility is, then you leave it to Allah to guide you. And you don't worry, you just follow the course of events. Allah's there with you. He will provide you a path. You might not see it right now, but Allah can see it. Allah knows what you want. And if it's the case that you made the wrong decision, if you went about the right process, then He'll help you correct your course. By doing things this way, Nabi Musa ﷺ is teaching us that there's not time to waste in this world, just like you're going about things in a roundabout way, in a haphazard way. We have to be people who are committed. We need to find and understand what our responsibility is, and then we need to go about performing that. And the final takeaway that I'd like to make for this evening, we talked about the importance of this lesson we get about fear. We talked about the importance of seeking from Allah the guidance about how to achieve those goals that we have chosen according to a correct method. But the third point I want to take is how easy it was for Nabi Musa alayhi salam to just leave. Like I said, he left aside everything, including all the riches, all the luxury, his mother and father, his sister Kulthum. And according to hadith, he had another sister named Maryam, a younger sister, his brother Harun, all those in the palace who had shown him affection, his supporters like Asiya, all of them, he just leaves them behind. What does that show us? It shows us that Nabi Musa alayhi salam considered himself to be a traveler in this world. And that's a huge example for us. We need to be travelers. We're not here forever. If it's the case that the idea of leaving is difficult for us, we're very much attached to so many things, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what guarantee do we have that we're even living to the next moment? We have to consider this dunya as being a passageway. Our final destination is not here. Every time we even go to sleep, there's all these etiquettes that are recommended, the least of which is, being in wudu, but going to sleep with the dhikr of Allah on our tongues. All of that is because even sleep, if you think about it, is a type of journey. Who's to say that our soul is going to be returned back to our body? There's a beautiful example we have that came to mind in this regard about somebody who always saw himself as a traveler, ready to leave, ready for death. When Salman al-Farisi, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, was appointed as the governor of Madyan, he only took up that position because Imam Ali Islam advised him to do that. Otherwise, he would never have gone for it. So they say that when he was making his way to Madyan, that was in Persia, when he arrived there, the people they had received news that they were going to have a new governor. So they were really excited and they were waiting for this new governor to come. So when they saw Salman, they saw somebody who was looking very simple, didn't have an entourage with him. They said that, do you have any news about the new governor who's coming? His name is Salman. So he looks at them and he tells them that, I'm Salman. So they're like, no, there must be some type of mistake here because, governor, he's supposed to be like this. And he's like, no, I'm Salman. Well, this is what I am. I'm the one who's been appointed. Like, okay, well, let us take you to your new home. It's going to be in the White Palace in the city. He says, no, I'm not going to stay in the palace. He says that take me near the bazaar and I'll find a very humble place right near the bazaar and I'll rent that place. And that's where Salman stayed. He had with him just like his donkey or his camel, I forget which one. He had a sword. He had a couple of other things, like one simple cloth which he would use to sit on. That's it. And people were just amazed that anybody who's in a position of rulership could be like that. But soon enough, Salman found a way into their hearts, and he's the reason why they say that many people in Persia became lovers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, because of course Salman, that was his identity, that he was a muhib of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Now, one time there was a natural disaster. In one report it was a fire, another report it was a flood. And everyone with all their fancy homes and all their possessions, they were really all those things got damaged. But what did Salman do? He grabbed the few things that he had and he went up on the top of the hill. And he was the one who, out of everyone, was the least damaged by this natural disaster. And then he made a comment. He says to them, that هكذا, he says that هكذا ينجو المخففون يوم القيامة. This is the way that those who have light loads are going to be saved on the Day of Judgment. So Nabi Musa alayhi salam is an example of that for us as well too. It's good for us to sometimes ponder upon this, and when we go to the graveyard, when we can, or if not, when we're just at home, to think about that, what's going to happen when this time of departure does arrive, it will arrive for all of us. What is it that's going to be the biggest sort of attachment that I have that will make it difficult for me to leave? And if there is something like that, then from now I need to think about it and to ask myself that, why do I feel that I'm here and I'm stuck here? No, I'm supposed to be here like a traveler. Whatever is here, it's with me right now, but one day I will leave it aside. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin. Okay, so there's a question, what is the philosophy behind shaitan being in chains in Ramadan? Is it true physically or is it just a metaphor? How to explain people who still sin in this month. We do have numerous hadith which mention this, but a few points. First of all, we have a shaitan on the outside, but we also have a shaitan within, which is our own nafs, the lower part of our nafs. For many, shaitan doesn't need to do anything on the outside, meaning Iblis and the jinns and the human beings that he uses to serve his cause. It's enough that somebody's own evil characteristics compel them towards evil. That's answer number one. Answer number two is that many of the hadith mention that the marada of the shaitan are chained up, which means that perhaps there are different groups of shayateen and only some of them are chained up in the month of Ramadan. Also, there's other traditions which say that shaitan is chained up and the doors of Jahannam are closed, but you should take care not to do anything that would trigger those chains being unlocked and those doors being reopened. Meaning that the grounds are there for somebody to have an easier time to obey Allah in the month of Ramadan because of their fasting and because of their being conscious over themselves. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be sinless. Their free will is still there. Okay, so there's a video that we wanted to show before the adhan. So inshallah we're going to try to get to the other questions tomorrow. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
ومن تحت الكساء.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's me, Miss Nazira.
And me, Amir. Salaam alaikum.
And we're the hosts from the Ramadan show. The show has been an absolute blessing, and I hope that you all have been enjoying it.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, we've had a lot of fun making it.
We sure have. And we're here actually with a special message on behalf of our friends at Kiss a Kids. Right now, they're running a campaign, and it's called the Kiss a Kids Qadr campaign. And we're looking for 150 monthly members to help join, inshallah. We need your help, and inshallah, we only have the last 10 days of Shahr Ramadan to make it happen. Amir, can you tell them what Kiss is up to?
Yeah, Kissa does amazing things like educational content for kids, videos and interviews for adults, things I didn't even know about.
Yeah, they have over 50 free resources if you go and check out the website right now. And they're doing things for kids and adults alike. So, friends at home, inshallah, we ask you again, just check the description box below. Find out how you can join for as little as $5 a month to help us, inshallah, do a lot of amazing work.
Yeah, and there's even some things we can do on the show. Like, for the 150 people that sign up as monthly recurring supporters, we could even mention them in the credits. I'm thinking even like executive producer super supporters.
Sure, we can use that title, inshallah.
Cool.
Okay, friends, again, go ahead and check it out. Join, get the Sadaqah Jariyah, especially during these blessed days of Shahr Ramadan, the last 10 days.
Looking forward to seeing you there.
Inshallah, we'll see you. Assalamu alaikum.
Salaam alaikum. Fi aman Allah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليا وأولاده المعصومين بالحق حجج الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.